welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. My name is Zach Kazan. I'm the managing editor at Worn and Wound. Thank you for joining us once again for another episode of the podcast. I'm joined today by our social media, the king of social media at Worn and Wound. I'm just going to give you a new title every time, Devin. We're going to continue this right into 2025. Devin Pennypacker. How's it going, Devin?
It is going very, very well. End of year is definitely kind of a weird moment in the watch world where a lot of us shut down and we kind of start to reflect on the past year, but then we get to kind of ramp it back up again and start the speculation. We stop looking back and we start looking forward. Yes. And I'm excited to kind of dive into the new year and see what these brands come up with.
Yeah, always looking forward, except for that 2-week period at the end of a year where we're frantically putting together end of the year reflection type content, which, to peel back the curtain a little bit, is what we are in the midst of right now. It is December 20th as we record this. We're recording ahead. This podcast will go live on New Year's Day, the first podcast of 2025. We hope you're having a great New Year as you listen to this podcast. But yeah, you and I,
if
Devin,
you're not, we're going to change it now.
Yeah, no, it's gonna get a whole lot better momentarily. But yeah, we're both in the midst of getting everything buttoned up, ready for that holiday break, which I would like to say I think we both deserve, frankly.
You know what, Zach, I will take that. I think we do deserve it. We work very hard. I've seen your little green light on at weird hours that it should not be on, and I'm sure you've seen mine.
You're referring to the Slack notification that I'm awake, basically, and probably I don't know, doom scrolling or editing or doing something.
Sometimes it's the same.
Yeah, sometimes I'm just occupying my brain with all kinds of watch related stuff at all hours, just to get to that end of the year point, which we've passed. If you're listening to this podcast, we've made it, so that's a good thing. Today's episode, Devin, we kind of had to figure out a topic sort of last minute to get this January 1st podcast ready to go, and I asked you to come up with some hot takes. We do these hot take podcasts from time to time where we just kind of think of some things that are on our minds related to the watch world, that might not be the most popular takes, but they're worth sharing sometimes. Well, I guess listeners will be the judge of that. Before we start displaying our take artistry, let's do a wrist check. Devin, what have you got on today?
Well, in the form of artistry, today I am wearing a Zenith Defy Skyline skeleton dial Bindi collaboration with a rainbow sapphire bezel.
Yeah, congratulations on your most recent purchase, Devin. I think that's a fantastic pickup. It really suits you.
It does. It brings out my eyes, thankfully. It is a weird flex watch.
It's honestly a pretty cool piece. This is a watch that we have on loan, for a period of time. We're just kind of taking it for a spin. We'll put photos of it in the show notes, but this is just kind of a crazy gem set piece. That's just
it's ridiculous. It is one of the watches, and actually I sent this message to you, Zach, as soon as I picked it up. It's one of the ones that you pick it up and you say, that's terrible, but while you're saying it out loud, your mouth is grinning and you can't help it because it's fun. It's ridiculous, it's zany, it's limited, so you're never going to own one. Yeah, but it's a fun piece.
Hey man, I'm never thinking it's terrible. I love the gem set stuff. I think it's cool. I think that
Well, first hot take.
A lot of these. Listeners of this podcast know I'm a fan of, some of the more just kind of insane gem set things. I've said on this podcast multiple times. This is a hot take, but I've said it before that the gem set Rolex sports watches are some of my favorite Rolex watches, including the Leopard Daytona that Nicolas Cage wears frequently. I think that's a delightfully crazy watch, but it really kind of it's a way that some of these kind of large luxury brands who there's a lot of frankly machine finishing and manufacturing and with these watches at a with brands that make these watches at a large scale, but there's no shortcuts for the gem setting. That's all that's all done by hand, and there's real skill in kind of making sure that the everything matches up, and everything has to be exactly perfect. So that's it's a flex, I think.
There are shortcuts, but they're very noticeable.
Yeah, if it's poorly done, it's very, very obvious. And a brand like Zenith, a brand like Rolex, when they're doing these gem set watches, it's at a very, very high level. They're doing it for real.
Yeah, it's jewelry. It's a stunning piece of jewelry.
Yeah. Very nice. I hope you're enjoying wearing that. But really a great watch to wear for the holiday season, I think. So
I thought it was great for the Hot Takes podcast.
for
I
sure.
brought this specifically for this podcast recording.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent choice. Very very supportive of you wearing the this particular.
Thank you. What do you have on, Zach?
I'm wearing. So I'll be honest. I haven't been wearing a watch for most of the day because I've just been like frantically kind of like, at my desk, just sort of like typing away, and it's not always the most comfortable to be wearing a watch. But I for the podcast, I put on my Louis Gerard Stefan Kadoke limited edition collaboration just because I love it, and it's it's actually kind of like a cousin of the watch you're wearing. It has a mother of pearl dial, kind of a more kind of like, but that's a material that's kind of often found in jewelry, and but it's just used in a different way here. So
cousins twice removed, met at one family reunion and never spoke again, but cousins.
Yeah, family is family. All right, Devin, let's get into the hot takes. I feel like it's been a while since we've done one of these podcasts. I've got a bunch written down. Some of them are hotter than others. A few of them might be lukewarm. Not really sure. I guess we'll find out. You want to get us started? You got a hot take for us?
I do, and it actually kind of relates to the watch that you have on your wrist.
Okay.
Now, listeners of the podcast, and if you're in the Slack community, you'll know that I am not afraid to throw my hot takes out there. Every podcast, I think we end up debating something that I say out loud, and I stand by it. I am so sick of stone dials. Stop it. Stop bringing them out. Stop bringing them. There are a lot of interesting stones out there. There are a lot of very interesting gems. There are really cool ways in which you can incorporate these materials into your watches. And I think that in the masses, the stone dials are very lazy. They get the stone, they cut them into little thin slices, they put them on the dial, and then they call it this new novelty, this expensive collaboration with the earth. And it's just, man, I'm tired of it. If you're going to do it right. And I think a few pieces do it right. Your Fears is one that in particular like really stands out to me as a really cool piece. Mm-hmm. But I just think that there are a lot of brands out there really phoning it in. And, one manufacturer figured out how to make topaz really cheaply for a dial. And now all of a sudden it is setting the industry on fire.
It's it's definitely a trend. It's something that we are kind of like we're all moving through this together. It's part of, it's something that's happening in the watch world right now. Everyone is kind of putting out their stone dials. I will just, for the sake of, accuracy and clarification, mother of pearl is not technically stone. It's like, it's adjacent for sure. It's in that family. They're often thought of together.
A cousin.
It's a cousin. It's family. It's family. I definitely agree with you that there are examples. I can point to some. I don't want to necessarily call them out by name because we don't like to criticize individual watches necessarily on this podcast. Maybe you do. I don't know. But I can think of watches that have stone dials, and I can't think. I don't understand why necessarily. Mm-hmm. Like they just seem kind of added on, like after the fact to kind of like meet the trend. But I like it when there's a stone dial that seems purposeful, for a particular reason. Like I'll give you an example. I really like those Denison watches that we had in the office recently with stone dials. They were like basically, I think they were entirely sterile dials. If I remember correctly, they didn't have any markings on them. Denison word mark was on the crystal. So like it really highlighted the stone, and the case was a 70s sort of like throwback style case. So it really kind of evoked something from the past. And I thought, to my eye, the stones looked nice. They weren't, they didn't, they're inexpensive watches, but it didn't like reek of like cheap bargain basement stones, in my opinion. And I'm not an expert, but just kind of like by sight, they looked okay to me. By contrast, if you have like let's say like a modern sports watch and you just put like a piece of malachite, in there, that's not as interesting to me. Like that to me seems like you're just jumping on a bandwagon, and it not really
trend chasey.
Yeah. Do you think how long do you think this is going to last? Like, when do you think the pendulum's going to swing the other way? Because one of the things it's not that I love stone dials and that I want to see more of them, but like I'm enjoying this period where we're getting other things besides kind of like typical vintage inspired sports watches. I like that we're getting just things that are a little bit, maybe more creative, or just stuff we haven't seen before. Which is that's kind of like the value I place on these things. But do you think we're nearing the end, or do you think we have like years to go on the
No,
stone
I
dial
mean,
thing?
we have years to go. You and I know we like the watches take a long time to develop. These aren't things that a lot of these companies can spool up within a year and then start producing and then start selling. So there are a lot of companies out there right now who are in the middle of developing their stone dial collection,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll see those kind of doled out over the next probably, I would say, 2 to 3 years at a minimum. And we're just gonna have to ride the tidal wave, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just hope that some companies out there start to do more interesting and purposeful integrations of the stone dials. I think back at like the old like Piaget pieces, and Creedor has some really cool examples back in the like the 80s and 70s where they were doing sub dials in Tiger's Eye, or they were doing sub registers, or different designs that weren't necessarily just here's a stone dial that we painted some indices on, here you go, enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Just take it and do a little bit more with it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think there's an opportunity to do that. I also think there's an opportunity to use like other stones. Like there's,
Mhm.
if you go back, if it's kind of fun to like do like a watch, or a Chrono 24 or a watch recon search, and just look for like vintage stone dials from like Piaget is a great example.
Yeah.
Vintage Rolex is another, like just kind of gold mine for, like really less commonly used stones, and unusual colors and with unusual textures. And I feel like we see a lot of malachite, we see a lot of lapis.
Hmm.
You know there's I don't see a lot of like carnelian. I don't
No.
but so there's opportunities to use different stones that are kind of like more unusual. And maybe that's like something we can hopefully look forward to. um
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it's a trend. There's always some sort of trend that we're either suffering through or enjoying. I'm trying to make the most of it. I'm trying to like look on on the bright side of this, and just sort of enjoying that like we're getting things of a different nature than what we've been inundated with like every single day for the last like
Yeah.
you know 5-6 years. So
I think that's fair. There's a lot of materials that are left out there to play with, and I'm hoping that some of those mid-cycle development people out there are actually looking at other materials and not just the stone dial.
yeah, oh, for sure. I think there's a lot of opportunity with materials in general. Lots of brands are very inventive, with materials. So yeah, something to look forward to in 2025. We'll see how that develops. I have a hot take. First thing, I'll preface this by saying I have a list of hot takes here, and they all kind of like follow a theme. I don't know if it's just because of like something that's on my mind. You can tell me if you spot the theme as we get deeper into the podcast. But the first thing I wrote down was all leather straps should have quick release spring bars.
Ooh.
Why are we doing anything else in 2025? I understand there's a purist argument that spring bar, like the quick release spring bars, can fail, or that they can even scratch the inside of the lugs because of the way that the
Hmm.
like the little like tab is positioned. I've never
Sure.
experienced that. We're several years in to quick release spring bar era. I've never had one fail. I've never had one scratch a lug. I've never had any sort of problem with any of them, any quick release spring bar ever.
I
And
have.
okay, well, we'll get to your problems, but let me just make my case here. I'm just sick of using the tool. I'm sick of using that
Yeah.
sharp Bergeron tool that I'm always worried I'm going to scratch something. Killing the resale value of the watch every time I endeavor to change a strap. Why can't all straps just have quick release spring bars? Give me your counter argument, Devin, if you've experienced
Yeah.
some sort of issue with a quick release spring bar.
Well, so I'll give you probably the answer in that most companies can't execute it properly. How many times have you seen a cheap strap with a quick release spring bar, the $20 specials on Amazon, $15 specials on Amazon, where the cutout hole for that little tab is cut really poorly, and then eventually it stretches out and looks really bad, or it's visible from the top side, which is just like horrendous. If I see the little tab hole from the top side of your watch, oof, you got to fix that.
Yeah, I mean that's not good. I've never experienced that because I'm listen, I own this, but I tend to be a bit of a snob when it comes to straps. Besides my $20 Barton rubber straps, which I love, that I wear in the summer, which have quick release spring bars. I'll add. So I'm generally not buying those like inexpensive kind of like Amazon special faux leather
Yeah.
straps with the
Genuine,
genuine
faux leather.
Genuine, yeah. I understand that could be problematic. I avoid that by buying like nice straps that will that I know will last. Have you ever had one like fail though? Because that's the argument that I hear from people, is that like they're not as strong somehow as a regular string. There's another point of failure, but I've never had one fail.
So I have. I will largely take that argument and throw it out, because to make them fail, it still took a lot. It was still outside of normal wear and use. It was still abuse. In normal situations, I have not had any fail, but I have had the tab stretch the hole out to where the spring bar actually fell out because it wasn't being held in properly anymore. I have had it where the actual tip of that spring bar, when I pulled the tab back, shot off and went across the room. That was a big problem, because that was one that I could not easily take out of the strap. And now all of a sudden, this beautiful alligator leather strap was just sitting on the table because it no longer worked in the case anymore. And then I had one that it did bend right at the tab, but that was on a much cheaper strap that I kind of didn't expect to last anyway. So it was all in cases of changing them out, heavy use, maybe abuse. One of them might have involved pliers. I won't confirm or deny that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, yeah, they might fail, but spring bars also might fail.
Sure.
These things do happen. And at the end of the day, I think I would take the chance of the spring bar failing over having to use the tool constantly, especially on high-end leather straps. I mean, how many times have you gone to try and stick the fork tool between the lug and the spring bar, and you either scratch the lug or you cut the end of the strap? You start to like dig into the leather a little bit, and that hurts just as bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Honestly, I didn't even think of that. It's like I'm sure if I looked at my straps that don't have quick release spring bars, if I looked carefully at the edges, they would probably all be pretty destroyed from that tool, just from kind of like positioning it properly. But yeah, no, I tend to think that any of those issues that you might have with a quick release spring bar are not as troublesome to me as like potentially damaging your watch with a tool. And I'll say, like, I'm not like precious about my watches. Like, I don't really care about scratches. It's just like, it's annoying. Like, at this point, I just find it annoying to have to like get out the tool, and like different spring bars have different like diameters that you need. So like there's like all these different, you need like different tools. You need like different end pieces for tools for different spring bars. And it's like, it's just frustrating. I'm all about making my life easier, Devin, and the quick release spring bars do that for me.
Zach, if you're anything, you are versatile. So having the ability to swap your strap at a moment's notice is very important.
I like options. I like to have options. I might not make use of them all the time, but it's nice to know that they're there. And if I'm buying nice straps, I know that they're there and they're not, like unsightly on the underside where no one's looking anyway, except for me potentially.
Yeah.
All right. What's your next hot take?
So this is one that I kind of toiled with back and forth, because I obviously have very large wrists, but I do think that the pendulum swing of big watches to small watches to big watches to small watches, we're very clearly back in the small watch swing. I'm just kind of getting tired of the whole trend of, well, this is a unisex watch, it's for everybody. Absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely true. But if you have to communicate that to your customer, then you probably designed it in a very specific way that is turning off your customers to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
You should just be able to put your watch out there, say, yeah, it's 36 millimeters, anyone can wear it, it's great. But to have to specifically go out of your way to say, hey, this is a unisex watch, men can wear this small 35 millimeter too, that's just a weird argument to make, because clearly they can. And you don't think that they can, so you're trying to convince them that they can. So just stop.
So are you just saying, is this like a marketing argument, or
Yes.
do you just want larger watches?
Well, I guess it's both. I do want larger watches.
Okay. Because I would
'cause-
say, I don't know that I necessarily agree that we're in that, like in like a small watch. I guess in some contexts we are. I see a lot of watches kind of like coming across my desk that are like, you know, bigger. Like I see average diameters getting larger. I don't have anything to quantify this. It's just like a you know, feeling I get that you know, we're maybe like inching back towards larger a little bit, even while smaller watches remain like readily available for people. I see like more options available, and like Nomos is my favorite example of this. Like Nomos now makes I feel like they make a club in like, you know, basically like 1 millimeter increments, like from 36 all the way up to like 42 or 43. Like you can get a Nomos in like almost any size you want, you know, at this point. But to, like expand a little bit on the marketing piece. You're like, I feel like the unisex thing is interesting.
It kind of drives me. So, I mean, obviously, behind the curtains here, I do work on a lot of marketing projects for Worn and Wound, and I'm kind of in the weeds there. And messaging is very important. Marketing is very important. But to me, when you are putting out the fire of people saying, "Oh, this watch is too small," that just means that you're not reaching the target audience. And so to sit there and go, well, this is a unisex watch. And I think really for me, what it comes down to is like a good example is the Tissot PRX. When that came out in the 35, everyone said, oh, cool, they made a women's PRX, which is fantastic. You know, my partner has one. She wears it. It looks great on her. I obviously can't wear one. But then Tissot came storming out of the gate, yelling at everyone, saying, no, this is the original case size. This is unisex. It's for everybody. And the market just wasn't buying it. And you know, they beat that drum to death, and it was a bit off-putting. And then actually on the flip side, Tudor, the Pelagos 39. If you go back and you look at all of the marketing for the Pelagos 39, that was marketed towards women. It was women sitting next to a pool wearing that watch, women swimming with that watch on. But most of the market sees a 39 as a men's watch. And so then Tudor kind of flipped the script and said, well, no, it's unisex. And then they started marketing it towards men. Stop putting the gender out there. Make your watch the size you want the watch to be. Put it out there. And if the market doesn't like that, well, then you make your adjustments. But don't start beating the drum telling people who it's for, because they know who it's for and it's not them.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think it's tricky. I think that you know, like my point of view is that like anyone can wear any watch they want. You know, like I think like I really strongly believe that like, you know, even a bigger guy can wear a 35 or 36 millimeter watch if they think it looks good, you know, like, and there was a time, you know, where if you were, you know, I have a 7.5 inch wrist, I'm 6 feet tall. You know, conventional wisdom is that a 35 or 36 millimeter watch is like probably too small for me. But if it was, you know, if it was 1958 and I wanted to buy a watch, I wouldn't have a whole lot of options that were larger than about 35, 36 millimeters. Yeah. And it was just normal. And it's just tricky when you have, you know, like so many different options, and the watch market is like honestly like pretty diverse, and brands want to sell to everybody. And you know, they're trying a lot of different things. Yeah, the Tudor example is interesting because I do remember that campaign, and it was very noticeable that they had women in the campaign, and you see the watch on women's wrists. I don't know that I agree that equates to marketing towards women. I think that men like a lot of men like to see like women in those ads too.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
And you know, you know, like same goes for watches aimed at women. I don't know. I think that there's like a huge range of like what appeals to people when it comes to size. And I don't know. It's tricky when you start gendering watches. So I guess I agree with you that like we should just like not gender them, and you know, in our you know, marketing.
Just put them out there.
Just let the market decide. Yeah. All right, good take. Okay, this is maybe my hottest take. I think I've actually like made this argument before on a different podcast. I make it sometimes just in like conversation. I've probably had this conversation with you, in fact. Devin, I am kind of tired of hearing people complain about a lack of micro adjustment on clasps.
Wait, this was
Like
the next one on my list.
in the same, like, I wonder if we have the same perspective or if we're at odds. Like, I think some, like, not every watch needs it.
Mhm.
And some watches are designed in such a way, like the bracelets are designed in such a way that they just don't accommodate micro adjust well. And the example I always come back to is Grand Seiko.
Mhm.
You know, they've people have been chomping at the bit for years, arguing that those watches need a micro adjustment on the clasp. I think like the standard kind of like, flip, a fold over clasp on a Grand Seiko bracelet is like really elegant and works, really well. And it would be worse in some measure if they like inserted a typical micro adjustment mechanism into that class, which would like make it thicker and
Yeah.
heavier and bulkier, and that's not the effect that they want. Um, Not every watch is for everybody, as we were just talking about with respect to size. Some watches you might not be able to dial in the perfect fit, on a bracelet. I've had watches where no matter how I adjusted the bracelet, I just could not get it to fit in the way that I wanted to. And I think that, like, that's okay. It's frustrating, but like,
Mhm.
that's okay. So let the watch designers design the watch, in the way that they see fit. And if they decide that the micro adjustment options that they have available to them would somehow make their, take away from their vision, of how the watch should look and function, then I think that's okay. Not every watch needs it.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I am in the camp of someone who frequently finds themselves in between links on bracelets where
Mm-hmm.
I take out the half link and it's just a little bit too big, and then I take out a full link and it's a little too small, and I'm fighting back and forth. But that's okay. There are a lot of strap options out there. There are a lot of bracelet options out there. If they have a quick release system, we can easily swap it out.
Yeah, yeah, it's all related.
And we're sitting pretty. And I think some brands out there do a really good job of the hidden on the fly adjustment, and those I'm definitely in favor of if it's designed properly and meant for that watch. Do I think that like a dress watch needs an on the fly adjustment? Probably not. But for instance, Omega's Planet Ocean, I have the old clasp and the new clasp for my Planet Ocean. If you look at them side by side, apart from the embossed text on them, you really can't tell the clasp apart all that much until you flip it over, and one has the old scuba dive extension, the other one has the quick adjust. And I'm going to pick the quick adjust all day long if it means I'm not sacrificing any of that additional size. But when you start to look at other brands out there, um, I'm sorry, Zenith, I love you, but on your vintage pieces, when you start to drill 15 holes in the
Mm-hmm.
side of my clasp in order to give me micro adjust, man, I don't want to look at that. I would rather not put that bracelet on because it doesn't fit than look at 15 holes drilled along the side. And the thickness on other ones where you have a quick adjust system in there that maybe isn't quite as finely engineered, but they're trying to hit that metric. You get that really thick stack on the underside of your wrist, and that can be really uncomfortable too. So at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and that's
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Yeah. I had this is one of the few watches I truly regret selling, but I had a vintage Zenith Defy with a lobster bracelet, which is just like one of the coolest
Ooh.
bracelet designs ever. It's great. And it had on the clasp that long row of like a dozen like micro adjust holes. And like, I just kind of thought it was funny. Like I didn't find it to be like an eyesore. I could totally understand how someone would. But it was like, because there were so many, it was tricky to like line up the little spring bar like in between like the ones that are like parallel to each other. It was just kind of a cumbersome experience to get it right. It was part of the charm. It's vintage watch, so it's
Right.
part of the, I guess, charm of the experience. But yeah, I don't know. I just like, I feel like I'm not a designer. I'm not an engineer. I don't make these things. I just like, I feel strongly that like the people who make them know what they're doing. And like, I don't
Yeah.
want, like, I don't, I'm not going to second guess, like the folks at Grand Seiko to, when they tell me that like their watches are better with, without micro adjustment. I assume at this point they've heard the calls and they've had a meeting or two, where they've thought
At least.
maybe we can do this, and they don't do it. So I assume there's a reason
Yeah.
for that. Um, Anyway, that's always the thing that I get the most comments on. It's like, come on, every watch should have micro adjust because it's so available. Like it's become so prevalent on a lot of like micro brands and small independent watches. It's like it's very available, and so people think it should just be everywhere. But I just don't know if I agree with that.
You're going to get the comment on every single video where someone writes on there, no micro adjust, I'm out.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
Okay, well, if that's the one thing that you need, there are other options out there for you.
Yep. Yep. That's never been a deal breaker for me. So
no.
Yeah. All right. Do you have another hot take you want to share, Devin?
Yeah, this one, man, this one is contentious. So I actually brought this up on a past podcast and immediately received like 5 DMs from people who I consider close friends who just flat out told me I was wrong.
Oh, wow.
But stop putting lume on every watch. Not every watch needs lume. If it's a dress watch, it doesn't need lume. If it's an everyday watch and the lume isn't like a torch on your wrist, that's okay too. If it's a dive watch and the lume sucks, that's something you should talk about. But speaking of Grand Seiko, I think that the way that they capture light and they play with the light is more important than if they were to just fill them with lume and send them out the door.
Yeah, listen, I like lume. I'm not I feel like I'm kind of like neutral on lume though. I'm not like I'm just not like crazy about it. I'm not a lume enthusiast. I'm a watch enthusiast. And I like good lume, but like kind of similar to the micro adjust thing. Like I trust the people who are, designing the watch to know what's best for that watch. And certainly there are cases where I can, like pick nits and think like, maybe the lume, I prefer a different color or, less intense lume or more intense lume or whatever, depending on the type of watch. But I certainly agree that not every watch needs lume, particularly, like a dress watch or a watch with like really intricate faceted hour markers, like Grand Seiko, or you keep coming back to that brand today. Like, those watches are designed to pick up light even in dark rooms, and they're designed not to need lume. So, I'm fully on board with that take. Is there like a particular watch that like comes to mind for you when you're like crafting that take? Like not every watch.
I mean, there's quite a few, honestly, and I think really where it starts to grind me down a bit is when you see an indice cut short in order to make room for the lume, and it throws off the balance of the dial in a certain way. And I think that happens on quite a few watches if you look around in that category, from the least expensive to the most expensive. And I actually, I had the Citizen Soyosa on the other day, watch that you have, and like quite a bit. And it's one that I feel like if they had leaned more into the dressier side of things in its design, might have come across just a little bit better, a little bit more elevated. But because there is this scream for everything needs lume, they tried to accommodate it in the best way they could. And I don't think it's offensive, but it does kind of bum me out a little bit. And I wish they would have just omitted it. That being said, though, I think there are brands that lean into lume in a really cool and fun way and are making use of the fact that this is a unique application. And I think that in some cases, that actually makes the watch. I think of like Awake with the way that they're kind of backlighting their watches. Very, very cool application there.
They do a great job.
Yeah, obviously Tudor does the milled blocks of lume, which is very cool. I love when companies do that. And then, a little sneak peek, but a brand we've talked about quite a bit, but Strom is working on something quite cool with lume that I'm looking forward to. And I think you don't always need to use it, but when you do use it, make it intentional and lean into, more interesting or useful applications.
Sure. What do you think of lume dials?
Oh, man. Well, I guess you kind of caught me out on this one because lume dials are awesome. You could put a lume dial. Fun. Yeah, you could put that on a reverso and I'd be excited about it.
Yeah, there's something about like that's a thing where like putting like mixing sort of like sports and dress watch tropes, I think, with a lume dial is interesting. Like like you just mentioned, like that would be sick. Like a reverso with a lume dial, I think would be incredibly cool. There's that Bulgari Octofinissimo. I think it's a red bar edition. I see Adam Craniotis posted all the time with a lume dial. I think it's the Chronograph GMT. It just looks so cool. I have a couple lume dials. I have a Citizen with a lume dial. I have I think that's the only one I have at the moment, actually. We just posted an article as we speak. We just posted an article on a new Holthenriechs limited edition with a concrete loom dial. It has loom material mixed into the concrete material, which is just like insanely cool. I would really love to see one of those in person.
I don't use this word in conversation often, but that watch goes hard.
Yeah. Well, I see what you did there. That was good. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Loom dials are fun. I think, like, for me, loom is more about like having fun with the design than like functionality. Like, I almost never find myself in a situation where I'm in a dark place and I think, oh man, if only I had more loom, that would make my current experience a whole lot better. Usually I can either see my watch just fine, or I'm in a position where, like, I don't, I shouldn't be checking the time anyway. Like, if I'm in a movie theater or something, like, I'm only checking my watch if the movie's bad. So, but I like the aesthetic of loom when it's used in certain ways, like the way Tudor uses their, like, those blocks of loom, and Christopher Ward with the Lumiere that came out.
Longa doing the datograph with the dial.
Longa's Lumen watches are insanely cool. Yeah. That's a good take. We'll both probably get some hate comments.
I'm not winning any fans on this podcast episode.
Okay, my next hot take. This is my most curmudgeonly one, and I apologize in advance. This is going to make me sound like even more like a jerk than I probably have already sounded through the first 36 minutes of this podcast. But if I post a watch on Instagram, for some reason, nothing like grinds my gears more than people asking about the strap, if it's an aftermarket strap. Like, I found this strap, maybe it's like custom made. Maybe I had to crawl through like pages and pages of like eBay results, but like this strap was chosen for a reason, and it's personal, and like not everything needs to be shared. I'm reminded of that Seinfeld episode where there's a character who wears like a side character who wears a certain type of glasses, and everyone's trying to figure out where he got these frames, and he refuses to tell people. Like, I really identify with that guy. And eventually they find out where he got his frames. Elaine finds out where he got his frames, and he gets his comeuppance, and maybe I'll get my comeuppance too. Yeah, I never answer that question when someone asks me where I got my, like, why do you want to be exactly the same? Like, a strap is like such an individual, personal thing. Like, find one that you love. That's my.
I thought you were going the other way, where you were going to say you posted a picture of a watch, and the first comment was, "It would be great if it wasn't for that awful strap."
Well, sometimes people don't like my straps, and that's fine. Yeah. That's fine too, and that's goes along with like the very personal thing. And I will say, like, if I'm wearing like a deeply unusual strap, like I used to have a watch that I wore, like a hornback alligator strap that was like bright green, and it was like it was made for me by a custom strap maker who I don't think makes these straps anymore, so I won't like shout her out. But like, if someone asked me about that strap, I would be like, yes, like go find this person and she'll make you like a cool custom strap. But like, I don't know. It's just like, to me, it almost feels like an invasion. And maybe that's just, I don't know, maybe just like weird personality quirk. I'm a weird guy. I don't deny it.
I mean, we're all weird. We are here. We are weird.
Yeah.
That's what we do. I don't know. I think.
Is that relatable at all? Or am I just on an island here?
No, I think you should take it more as a compliment. I think people are looking at what you have chosen, and they are, I don't know, happy or excited or want to assimilate, and are telling you like, hey, good job. I would like to do the same thing. I don't know. I guess you can run away from a compliment. Maybe you have some Midwest in you where if someone compliments you, you have to laugh and say, no, that's not true. But I
think maybe that's an element of it. I also just like, I don't know. Some things I just want to keep for myself, and it's hard to do that on social media. I should just accept that, like, when you're posting anything on social media, it's like, it's for public consumption, and people are gonna just, it's all it's everything can be dissected, and it's all worthy of everyone's just going to have their say. So that's
Well, after this, every single post you put up, I'm going to ask you where you got the strap and if it has quick release. I will await the no answer.
I have real quick, I have a somewhat related hot take that I just thought of. That's also related to Instagram. We have to stop doing that thing where you like every post that someone's made in the hopes that they'll like share a screenshot of you liking every post that they've made and like say like, thank you, Devin, for liking all 50 of these posts, causing my
thanks for calling
phone
me
to
out,
vibrate
Zach.
for an hour on end, and it killed the battery.
Yes, I was scrolling through your Instagram last night. Thanks for putting me on blast during this podcast.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I have that happen from time to time. And I think a lot of it too is not just sharing a screenshot, but like they're looking for you to follow their account and they're hoping that by liking all of your posts, you will follow them. And spoiler alert, I'm not going to.
Yeah. Also, like if you want to, I don't know, if you want to communicate with me on Instagram, just like send me a DM. Like I respond to DMs. I don't respond to strap inquiries, but I'll respond to DMs and chat with you about watches or anything else. Movies. I have a lot of great conversations about stupid movies I'm watching. Have you seen Hot Frosty yet, Devin?
Okay, so it's on my queue. I am traveling home for the holidays. Like we said, we're recording this kind of in the past. And so it's on my list of movies to watch during the holidays. I told Jamie and my partner that we were going to watch that, and she got very excited all of a sudden.
People are into this movie.
Well, then I felt a little bit bad about myself after I saw the guy in it. but I'm still waiting for it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Like I said, solo time on screen, Hot Frosty pod coming sometime in the summer of 2025, probably when it's most appropriate to do that. All right, Devin, what's your next hot take?
So this one, I'll admit at this point, it's probably not the hottest take anymore, but I felt this way for a long time. And when I first started expressing this to people, it was a very, very hot take. Two-tone is very cool. I don't care what anyone says. I love a two-tone watch.
I wouldn't have expected you to. I gotta say, this is not what I was expecting from Devin Pennypacker to be a two-tone guy.
I've got my Bindi watch on. I'm feeling myself. I'm gem encrusted today, Zach Kazan, and I'm here to fight for two-tone.
Okay.
I think it's great. I wear that two-tone Oris pointer date frequently, and I love that watch. And I think there are a couple brands out there who just do it really well. There are some that obviously I'm not a big fan of their execution, but weirdly to call out two other brands here apart from Oris, but Frederic Constant does a really great high life, especially with like the white and the brownish black dial that they do in a two-tone. Beautiful watch, really well finished. I actually just was playing around with the Parmigiani Fleurier Tonda PF 36 millimeters ladies piece, gray dial with a two-tone case and a gold bezel. And it was just beautiful. It elevated the piece in a way that you wouldn't expect it to, and kind of breaks up the pattern a little bit and gives it a little bit more visual interest. And I'm here for two-tone. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that, like anything else, I think there are good examples and bad examples of two-tone. Yeah. And, that Oris example is really great. That's steel and bronze, right?
Mine is actually, so the one I own is steel and gold cap.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think two-tone's fun. And like in the right combination, the right execution, it can look really good. Sometimes it doesn't. But that's true for any type of watch, So yeah, no, I fully support that. The thing that is always weird to me about two-tone is like, it's always positioned as like two-tone is making a comeback.
Always, yeah.
Like, I think it's just here. I think it's just kind of like maybe always been here. It's never been like the go-to for everybody. It's never been the most popular option, but it's always there, and it always will be here, I think. Probably.
Well, yeah. It's making a comeback. So.
Well, since you put it that way, I guess. Yeah, no, two-tone's cool. That's maybe the most surprising thing I've heard you say. I just wouldn't have pegged you as a two-tone guy. So
when I throw it out there, people do get taken aback, I think, by it, because I'm not. A lot of my watches are tool watches. I like a brushed over a polished finish. My typical style doesn't lean into a two-tone, but I wear like a lot of black on black. I wear a lot of kind of more workwear stuff than I do dress stuff. And so I think it's really fun when you pull out something that's steel and gold with just a monochromatic backdrop and more of a workwear backdrop. I think it's just a cool combination that, shows that you're steel, you're still standard normal editions, but then you have that little bit of elevation that just makes it feel like a special piece. And it can be done really well.
What about platinum and tantalum?
That'd be fantastic. I'd also go for ceramic and gold.
Sure,
I think that might be kind of cool. I don't know off the top of my head of any brand doing that, but I'm sure that would look pretty awesome.
Well, I will say as well, ceramic and gold. I mean, certainly like Rolex makes solid gold watches with ceramic bezels. Sure. Yeah. But you're thinking, I imagine you're thinking like ceramic cases with gold accents.
Yeah. I'm thinking like how cool would the Zenith Pilot flyback big date look if the indices were gold? Like that black ceramic with the gold on top of it would look pretty cool.
Yeah, no, probably would. Yeah. All right. Well, that's an idea. Maybe we'll see something like that in Watches and Wonders in like 4 short months. Who knows?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that'll be the test to see if there's a lot of two-tone at Watches and Wonders. That'll be whether it's back or whether it's still coming back. That's always the designate. Like, it's important to get that designation right. I have a couple of more hot takes. This is maybe a lukewarm take. I'll preface this by saying I treasure all of the watches I've ever received as a gift. I love it when, I love to receive any gift. It's always, they're always warmly received. But I think for watch collectors, for connoisseurs, for people who are like really in deep in the hobby, watches don't make great gifts. I think there are other watch related things that make better gifts than a watch, because I think you could probably relate to this. There's certain very specific watches that you want, as you're working on a collection, as you're kind of like, it's a mission, like you're trying to like obtain certain pieces. You're trying to like, make sure there's harmony in the watch box. And, like it's a very focused thing. And I can think of a lot of other kind of like watch related things I'd rather receive as a gift than a watch that I'm like lukewarm about. Because watch collectors have like, we have like very like specific tastes. And so it's hard to like kind of live with a watch sometimes if you don't love it. I'm lucky that like the watches I've received as gifts I happen to really like. But anyway, that's a take I have.
No, I think that's fair. I think a first watch is a really cool gift.
That's a good point. Yeah, first watch is
I think that's awesome. I think that's a really cool way to try to get someone into the hobby and share it with someone else. But I think after that point, you're better off getting peripheral gifts. It's like, what if I just walked in one day and I bought you a pair of shoes?
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to fit. I don't know if you're going to like them. I don't know if it's your style, if they're comfortable. I don't know how you feel. Like, maybe I'm telling you have dirty shoes and you need new ones. Like, it's just a weirdly personal gift that I think probably relates to more people. Everyone owns a pair of shoes. Not everyone owns a pair of watch. Not everyone owns a watch. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, if you put it into that context, it's like, yeah, that's a weird gift.
Yeah.
And so if I brought in a shoe cleaning kit, that's a little bit different. It's not offensive. It's something that everyone can use. And so stick to the fringes.
A shoe cleaning kit sounds like a kind of a lame gift. I'm going to be honest. Like
check under your tree, Zach.
All right. Well, clean my. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Yeah.
I guess I took a really long path to hit the target here, but just stick to the peripheral. Don't go for the main interest, but get complimentary gifts for the watch enthusiast in your life.
Yeah, like a beautiful watch box, or like a watch roll that's like personalized, like somehow is like
or tools.
Yeah, tools are very useful, because not every watch has quick release spring bars. Right. So like, as we've discussed, you might need really good tools.
And they're expensive too. So like, most of us don't want to buy them for ourselves. Most of us we're using cheap spring bar tools that have come with a watch that probably have bent 12 times, and we've tried to bend them back into place. Yeah. So if you purchase a watch enthusiast like a really nice tool, that'll make their day.
100%. Yeah, that'd be a great gift. Just like everything in the Bergeon catalog. Like, just
yeah. Or the wind up watch app.
Yeah. Load me up. Yeah. Do you have any more hot takes, Devin? I've got one more. So if we want to like kind of close it out with
Yeah. Okay. I'll do one more. And I guess this one kind of follows in suit of like the two-tone trend that I'm talking about and the gendering trend. But I'm sitting here wearing a gem encrusted watch,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of love them. We talked about that a little bit at the top of the podcast, but I want to circle back to it because I think there are ways to do it really well and ways to do it very poorly, just like everything that we've talked about. A great article I'd like to point out is that Meg, who writes for the site, just put
Mm-hmm.
out a really interesting and really well thought out article from the perspective looking at the doxa that was just released, the gem encrusted doxa.
The Doxa Diamonds, very
Yes.
controversial release. Lots of
Yes.
hot takes on that watch on social media for sure.
Tons. And that is not one that I want to plant my flag in. But I think there are some really cool examples out there of a use of gems where they can, they can go into the bezel. I've seen them where they put them in the top of pushers or in the crown or just about the dial in different ways. And it can be a lot of fun to just play with light in a different way. That I think, I think a lot of people look at a gem encrusted watch and they think one of two things. One, it's either a cheap like rapper's watch and they're trying to show off, or two, that's a woman's piece and I would never want to put that on.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there's room for everyone to kind of enjoy it and have a little bit of fun and show off a little bit and, just try something new.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I said, I've always been a fan of these things. I always enjoy seeing them. They're these watches, watches in the style are some of my favorite watches to see at like a Watches and Wonders or like any sort of like trade show or like watch get together where like these things like change hands. They're just like because they're pretty rare, the ones that are done at a very high level or you don't see them a lot, so it's special when you see them. And like I said, like the good ones represent like real craft, and it's like it's a lot of these kind of watchmaking disciplines coming together in a way that you just don't get with like a run of the mill watch. It's like not gem set, and like some of them are like objectively like pretty beautiful. And I'm also fascinated by like the business of it, like especially with Rolex. Like Rolex gem set watches have always been something that I've been just like genuinely fascinated by. Like they always make every year they make off catalog pieces that they don't show anyone, that just go to like to VIPs, and most people are not aware that they exist until they show up at a auction or something. And just like the financial piece of it is fascinating because they maybe make like one or two of them a year, and like for Rolex to make one or two of anything is just crazy to me because they are like the mass manufacturer of like luxury watches. They make, 1 million plus watches a year overall. So for them to like scale back and do something that's so high craft, they can only make, like a small handful of, for a small handful of people, it's just like, it's just genuinely like very interesting to me. So
maybe that is what I like the most about it, is that like, they don't make sense. When you look at them, you're like, there's a really heavy personal touch put into that watch meant for a very specific person. And that is the company saying, hey, we can do this. We can do this at a high level. Most people aren't going to like it, but we don't care. We're going to flex a little bit. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's also, I'll say like, those are not watches that appeal to me. Like, like I don't want to own a gem set watch. Like I can't imagine I would ever want to own, a watch like that. And like, so for me, they kind of represent like the idea of admiring a watch without a desire to own it, which I think is like a key to kind of like enjoying the hobby in a lot of ways is, like understanding that like you can appreciate something without wanting to like bring it into your collection. And not everything is like, has to go through like the math equation of like, can I afford this? Can I buy it? Should I buy it? Some things are just nice to look at and, nice to appreciate on their own. And that's another thing that gem set watches kind of like, mean to me personally, is it's just like, oh, this is like a very kind of like specific type of craft that's like, really, really, like we're just really crazy and really beautiful. And, they're just like, I admire them. So, that's a really good take. my last one is just simply that Chinese manufacturing is okay, and we should all just be a little bit more comfortable with watches that are made in
What a
China.
one to end on.
I think that like we've maybe, I don't think this is actually a very hot take. I think we've like as a community kind of like turned the corner on this and have accepted that a lot of the watches that we own have components that are made in China. There's a period of time, certainly when I got into the hobby, I don't know if this was the case when you got into the hobby, when Chinese manufacturing was like really looked down on. Mm-hmm. And if it became known that like a component of a watch that had like, made in Switzerland or Swiss made on the dial came from China, it was like scandalous and, right. like a very bad thing. And I think that that's no longer the case and that's a good thing. Because I mean, frankly, like the manufacturing has gotten better, across the board. And there's just like a wider acceptance of that. So, something it's commonly understood, because I think if you ever buy a watch from a brand that does business overseas, like you're going to get a form with like a customs declaration, and it's going to like list where all the components come from. And like, you'll see that like even on a Swiss made watch, like, case made in China, dial made in China. And I think that's okay. And, because they're, a lot of these manufacturing facilities are doing really, really high quality work. And it allows for a lot of the brands that we love to be flexible and achieve the kind of like vision that they have, for their watchmaking. And that's a positive thing, I think, for the community.
I know. I think you're right. And I mean, look, at the end of the day, a craftsman or an artist is a craftsman or an artist, no matter where they're from. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter what the country of origin is. If someone is making something that is truly beautiful or just well engineered or well manufactured, who cares, as long as the practices are being done properly. Obviously, we don't want to support companies that are, following harmful practices. And that's true of regardless of where it's coming from. That can happen in any country. So that's something I think to look into a little bit more. But I was around when this was happening with watches, and to be honest, it still is. That still comes up and it flares up from time to time. But it was even more volatile in the knife community, which I spent a good portion of time in, especially when I was younger. I was really into collecting, buying, selling, trading pocket knives. And in that community, you have a very large group of people that are very vocal. They're part of like the tactile community, where they are usually, they could have a military background or some sort of connection there. And there was this encrusted ideal that the Chinese manufactured stuff was just awful, that it was trash. You should never support it. You should never buy it. They were all knockoffs. Everything was a knockoff. And then a couple companies sprung up, like Kaiser and We Knives and Reich Knives, and they were making incredible pieces at lower price points than the US manufacturers were. And they kind of put the entire community on blast and said, hey, look what we can do for a cheaper price point. You can't touch this, but we can. And from that moment on, I think the narrative kind of shifted. And yeah, I'm glad to see now that we're at a point where a lot of us can kind of look at that objectively and say, well, it doesn't matter where it comes from. If it's well made, it's well made.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that does still, unfortunately, flare up more often than it should, especially in comment sections like things tend to.
Well, I hope it doesn't flare up in the comment section for this podcast, because that'd be a shame. But maybe it will. I don't know. My hot take is that people should comment on our posts.
That is a hot take.
Yeah, let us know what your hot takes are when you see this podcast posted on Instagram or on the blog or wherever. We would love to know, heading into, as we enter into 2025, what are your hottest watch related takes? Maybe your hottest take is Devin and I are way off the mark on everything we've said, and that's okay. I think that that's actually a lukewarm take. That's not
no, that's actually pretty standard.
Yeah, that's probably we don't know anything. Devin, thank you so much for joining me on the very first podcast of 2025. I hope you have a great hope you're having a great new year. We're again, we're talking to each other from the future, because it's only December 20th, and then we still
we're back on projects already, man. We're head down grinding out the new year. The content doesn't stop.
It never does. We appreciate everyone listening. Thank you for joining us, and we will be back next week with another episode of the Worn Around podcast. Until then, take care.